Hello, today I'm going to read a short extract from the beginning of chapter 1 of That Still and Whispering Place. Claire knew this tree. She remembered climbing it as a child, annoying the boys because, long-limbed, she could do it faster. Not that she hadn't skinned herself doing it, but that had never stopped her. She reached out an uncertain hand to touch its trunk. It was strange to be back. The alder flanked one of the footpaths weaving through the woods to the east of the village, a stone's throw from the banks of the sleepy river which cut the settlement in two. Claire knew all the woods round Bohenna and the sly tapestry of footpaths that crossed them. It surprised her how little any of it had changed. Strange to be back, but good too. And yet there was something wrong because she couldn't hear the river and there was no bird song either. The woods had never been this quiet. Then the piercing scream of a girl split the air and Claire's unease quickly turned to panic. She turned, was certain she knew where the scream had come from and ducked away from the tree, starting to run. She cut right, then left, weaving in and out of the trees, picking a footpath here, one there. She veered right again. This path wasn't one she'd used before, but she ran on anyway, blindly, urgently, driven, unable to hear anything save the thump of blood in her ears and the cracking of broken twigs underfoot. Her headlong search came to an abrupt end. She'd found her, a limp, twisted bundle on the ground, her blonde hair filthy with mud, her skinny arms thrown out sideways as they always were when she slept. The little girl was barefoot, wearing just a t-shirt and shorts, and Claire fell to her knees, reaching out to gather the child into her arms and hug her close. She must take her indoors, wrap her in blankets, give her hot drinks, never let the girl out of her sight again. But Jilly's white skin was covered in bruises, her clothes torn and blood-stained. To the touch her flesh felt frozen. Claire couldn't get a grip on her, and now the child was melting into the ground, her features rapidly dissolving away. Claire felt her heart twist inside her chest as if someone was wrenching it out of her body. She was screaming her daughter's name and turning in circles, anguished, searching for her. But there was nothing she could do because she was falling. A radio blared into life and music twittered into her head, a stupid, silly little jingle. But that didn't make any sense because there were no radios in the wood. And it was getting louder. Claire opened her eyes and struggled to focus, her heart still thumping, her skin damp with perspiration. She was sprawled along the sofa, her left arm stretched up behind her, the hand tucked beneath her head. For a moment she couldn't recognise the room, though the furniture looked familiar. Her hand had gone to sleep, and she unfolded her arm and stretched it, trying to make it feel again. Slowly reality sank in and her heart rate subsided. She'd had that dream again. She remembered moving in. Was it only yesterday? Remembered the old man next door watching suspiciously as the removal men carried each piece of furniture into the cottage. She remembered all the cleaning and unpacking, and then she'd sat down and fallen asleep. The stupid jingle was still playing, and Claire sat up, shaking her left hand as it started to throb, and simultaneously reaching with her right for the mobile phone on the coffee table, wondering why she had chosen such an inane ringtone. Glancing at the name on the screen, she hesitated before accepting the call. "Hello, Neil." "Claire, at last you finally deigned to answer. What the hell are you doing? Have you gone mad?" "Don't start, Neil. But what possessed you to go dashing back to Bohenna? If you're trying to make me feel guilty, it won't work. I won't be manipulated." He paused. "Are you all right?" She swallowed, taking her time. "Of course I am." He was silent, long enough for her to wonder if he was still there. "How did you know I was here?" she asked eventually. "I called at the house and one of the neighbours told me, so I tried ringing you, and when I couldn't get a reply, I rang Laura." "You shouldn't have gone bothering Laura." "I wouldn't have needed to bother if you'd answered your damn phone. I just wanted to know what was going on. And she's not happy about what you're doing either. In fact, she sounded quite upset. She's worried about you." He hesitated. "What were you thinking?" Claire shook her head silently and tipped her head back, rolling her eyes up to look at the ceiling. She'd missed a cobweb and she watched it dance in the draught coming under the front door. "Claire," he insisted in her ear. "My coming here is not about you," she said slowly. She watched a tiny spider abseil down an invisible silken thread from the edge of the web. "It has absolutely nothing to do with you. Why should it? Soon we'll be divorced. You wanted the divorce as much as I did." More, she thought, much more. "You're in no position to dictate what I should do with the rest of my life. I told you I was planning to come back, but you obviously weren't listening. I wasn't going to hang around waiting for our house to sell. And our daughter's all grown up now with plans of her own. Maybe you've been too busy to notice. So I've come home." Claire stopped short. It was the first time she'd put it that way. Home. She nodded. Yes, that was exactly right. "Anyway," she added, "I explained what I was doing to Laura, and she was fine about it. You're using her as emotional blackmail. It's typical of you. You say you want a new life, so get on with it and leave me alone. How is Samantha, by the way?" "Damn it, Claire, you know very well our marriage had fallen apart way before Sam came on the scene. You were impossible to live with. You wouldn't move on. And look at you now. You're back chasing shadows." Claire said nothing. Neil constantly put the blame on her as if he'd done nothing, as if he had been easy to live with, and it made her angry. But she was tired of all the arguments and recriminations and didn't bother to retaliate. She was tempted to cut him off. He'd done it to her several times over recent months, but couldn't quite bring herself to do it. She was pleased to hear his voice, and that made her cross too. She got up stiffly and walked to the window, looking out to the front. The old man from next door was standing on the rough ground opposite the house, staring into the interior of her car, as if it was an invention he hadn't seen before. "Claire, darling." Neil's voice in her ear now held something of the old familiar warmth. It was easy, tempting, to believe he still cared. "Stop blaming yourself. Please. It wasn't your fault. You know these things happen. She's gone. You've got to let her go." Claire hesitated, squeezing her lips together hard, feeling tears prick at her eyes, but refusing to let herself cry. "You think you understand me," she said, "but you have no idea why I'm here. None at all. And I'm not convinced you care, Neil. I think it's about your pride. You think Bohenna is your patch, the Pennyman's patch. But it's mine too, remember? Well, I've made the choice to come back. That's all there is to it." He grunted. "I'm sure you didn't tell me, and I wish I'd known before." He now sounded sulky. She could imagine his expression perfectly, the pout of his lips, the frown making the top of his nose crease up. "I did tell you. We discussed which furniture I should take. I thought that was for the future. I didn't expect you to run away like this. It's insane." He sighed. "Does Mum know you're there?" "I better tell her." "There's no need. I'm going to tell her myself." "It might be better coming from me. Claire, are you listening? Neil, it's my life. Butt out." This time she closed the call without giving him a chance to respond and stood for a moment, painfully aware of the sudden silence and the pressing, insistent heaviness of it. If there was birdsong now, she didn't hear it. She was back in the past, a succession of painful images running through her head. That dream had unnerved her, but she had known it would be like this. It was never going to be easy to come back. She saw the old man walk away from her car with his bent, lurching gait, and the movement brought her back to the present. Old Eddie. She had known of him growing up, had seen him round the small Cornish village, but had never had a single conversation with the man. He'd been an agricultural worker, she dimly remembered, lived alone, and didn't bother much with anyone except maybe a walk to the pub now and then. And he kept chickens. She knew that because the cock kept crowing all hours. And now the weak October sun was already setting. Gloom was descending. The nearby bank of trees appeared to suck what little light remained. She moved away from the window, hesitated, then brought up Eve's number on her phone. But no, she couldn't face it now. Neil's mother could wait. It was hardly urgent, and despite what the Pennymans might think, the woman did not rule the world. She put the phone down. She needed to go for a run to get that dream out of her system. Jogging was the only thing she had ever found which helped. She went upstairs to change.